So I don't want to say it's Ghost, but it's Ghost. We were talking about how a hole in the wall suddenly had 2 holes in it, where there was only one.
Yeah.
And then the podcast stopped recording, and Ryan's chair
Deflated
and broke. So I'm not saying it's Ghost, but it's Ghost. And why? Because it's our podcast time. That podcast right now you're listening to, which is Eat, Drink, and Be Scary.
The haunting one.
Yeah, and it's starring
Ryan.
And Tanya? Oh, I don't
Tom.
have my mic on. I don't know what it is.
It's Tanya.
And Bill. And we have a guest here today who we're going to talk about in a second. But first, because we have to talk about the Eat, Drink part, I'm going to go through this again because we already did it once. Not that everybody heard it, but we all got it. We're all drinking. What are we drinking, Ryan?
Well, we're drinking Space Camper.
Space Camper, Cosmic IPA, and Major Volta.
And Giga Hop by Boulevard Brewing.
And I'm having a Mountain Dew.
And so it's space beer. Wink, wink. We're having candy bars, which are what?
Milky Way.
We have mixed nuts because
it fits.
That fits.
Cheese balls.
And white cheese balls. And then we had I tried to order calzones and I messed up. I got sandwiches and 1 calzone because they are covered up pizzas. Everybody figure out what we're doing yet? And we're wearing tinfoil hats because we're doing what, Ryan?
Talking about aliens, alien cover-ups, and military conspiracies.
And there's no better way to talk about that than somebody who's involved with that, and that's Ryan's guest today. Ryan, tell us about your guest.
Yeah, this is my good friend Casey. He has an extensive military background and extensive alien interaction, and we're here to listen to him talk and then interrogate him the best way we know how.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. With probes.
And puns.
Perfect.
All right, well, with that, hi, Ryan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So tell us about your history. Tell us what makes you an expert in this.
27 years federal service. Been in and around some of the deep projects that most people don't know about. And just some of the things that I've seen and witnessed in my years of taxpayer-funded service.
All right. That's awesome. And you're going to tell us about some of these, aren't you?
Yeah.
So let's start off with some. What do you want to tell us? Tell us about one right now. What have you seen?
Oh, wow. That's it's like one of those things, where do you start? Years ago, you were talking about the cube. Mm-hmm. Years ago, we were pulled off of a assignment, basically, and asked to be a security detail, which on the line of work that I was doing, to be asked for a security detail it's unheard of. So we were taken to a place in New Mexico, and
is it the place in New Mexico?
No.
Okay, so it's not the place.
It's not the place. No. This is as being part of a security force, mall cop for this operation, I guess you could say. Our exact orders were to keep anybody and everybody away from this. It didn't matter if they were civilian or not. There was no warning shot. If you see them, you kill them. That's what we were told.
Wow.
Okay. Sweet. So we were from the area of this test is what it was. We were actually 2,300 yards from where this test was happening, so we could see surrounding areas. And this test involved a steel cube that was set on a riser at about 4 feet off the ground, 3 to 4 feet off the ground, and this cube was 5 foot square. It was solid steel. And we were told that the test was going to commence within, a certain amount of time. And so we were doing our perimeter search, making sure no civilians, four-wheelers, or anybody else were out there. And our ears literally started to ring, like tinnitus or whatever, So we looked back and you could see this cube, and it was literally looked like it was melting and fluctuating, but it was vibrating so heavily.
So kind of like you were looking through like a heat signature? Or...
Yeah, it looked like a mirage around it, but you could actually see this cube changing shape. Like it was like it was clay, like someone was squeezing it.
Oh, okay.
Like an undulation in the sides?
Yeah, a vibration going through it. And then it was seconds later, this solid cube literally vaporizes, and it's just spall. Looks like a sparkler covering about a quarter mile. It just dissipates. Nothing there. No sonic boom, no explosion sound, nothing. And we're all just standing back going, what in the hell did we just see? Come over the radio, stand, keep your place, keep our search, keep our thing up. And we really doubled our security around that at that time. Orders were reiterated. If you see anybody, there is no warning shot, kill them.
No matter who it was, right?
It didn't matter if it was the President of the United States or your child. You shot it.
Wow.
So we stayed on station, it was probably 3 hours. And then by that time, they had everything moved and cleaned up that they wanted to. And then it was all back to normal and we all disappeared. Well, in the debrief, what we learned, they actually kind of explained what we were seeing because we actually had to go and get testing for radiation to see how much we'd been exposed to. And what it was is the ringing that we heard was a ultrasonic wave that they were pushing at this steel object to actually displace the atmosphere to create a vacuum. Then 6 miles away, they had a vehicle-mounted energy weapon that fired a depleted uranium bolt at 12 miles per second. And that's what hit that steel cube and basically turned it into iron oxide vapor.
Like a rail gun?
Sure.
Wow.
But there was no typical tracer or smoke signature behind the bolt that went through the air because of that vacuum that was there. There was no atmosphere to slow it down.
That's awesome.
So do you think that was, alien technology, or do you think it was? What do you feel?
Man,
like
my spidey senses are tingling. I feel like that goes right into some Navy patents that I'm going to talk about. That's awesome.
Well, if you go back into that, this is where it gets kind of interesting.
You interrupted his answer to talk about your Peter Tingle.
Yep, because something he said made me totally think about the Navy patents that are going on right now, called UFO patents.
Oh, okay.
They're called UFO patents?
Yeah, well, they're calling them the Navy UFO patents. That's what people are calling them. They don't have names, but the stuff that they're trying to patent and that they force the patent office to put through are ridiculously physics mind-bending. Crazy stuff.
Like quantum?
Like making a quantum particulate field around an object where...
Oh, you're talking about the Philadelphia Project.
Well, essentially, when you put a quantum area around around an object and then it negates anything it's going through, be it air, water, space, and so they're looking to make a totally transmedium craft.
Well, one of the things that they were dealing with, this is interesting, so I was getting back to, a lot of people are familiar with the Philadelphia Project.
Mm-hmm.
My great uncle was part of that.
Really?
And this is a family.
Why don't you touch a little bit on what the Philadelphia Project is for?
Philadelphia Project was the U.S. military. There really was no department. It was militarily wide, government wide. Was trying to cloak a ship from radar, is what the excuse was at the time. Well, in doing so, they were using different energy frequencies and basically gravitational waves around the ship to make energy bend and light bend around it. And actually what they did, even talking with my great uncle, is where the ship did disappear. So they did accomplish what they were going for, but there was a hole in the water. So the energy signature of the ship was still there because there was a 300-foot hole in the water that didn't collapse.
So essentially they made an invisibility cloak.
That's what they were going
by
for.
bending light around a solid object.
That's what they were trying to do. But in the process, using those gravitational waves, and my great uncle was someone who was a very serious individual, very scientific. And the stories that he told us about this stuff, when the ship came back, when they turned everything off and the ship reappeared, there were people literally that were melted into the bulkheads of the ship.
That's what
they were part of the ship.
So, like in the bad movies where someone teleports and they teleport into like half a rock wall or something.
Like Jeff Goldblum in Fly, except for half fly, you're now half battleship.
Well, it goes along that thing when you start ripping apart.
It's
the
quantum displacement, right?
Yeah. If you don't have something, a signature, a map, or a sequence to separate another sequence, they're going to meld together.
Right.
So that's what happened. So if you go back to the cube, right? The amount of energy needed to oscillate a 5-foot cube is astounding.
And it was solid, right? Solid.
Oh, it was solid. Yeah, it was an AR-400 cube.
Okay.
Wow.
So anybody
Got to be several tons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so not only to produce a projectile or to launch a projectile at 12 miles per second, that, there's so many factors there. And, at the time that we were looking at this stuff, were just like, holy crap, we're invincible with these weapons. And later I learned that the very things that we were seeing at that time, this is back in the 90s, were about 50 years behind what they actually had.
Wow.
What they were actually working on. So you can equate that today. We're just now seeing energy weapons coming online. So you can actually kind of quantify that and go, okay, that's 50-year-old technology.
Wow. So is the concept for the quantum displacement, I guess, shield, is it for invisibility or is it for frictionless travel? Is it for, what's the concept behind it?
No, it really just depends. So it's been proven, the ATIP, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program that ran from 2007 to 2012, they were $22 million to divvy up how they wanted to. And part of the things that came out about that was that they were granting actual scientific studies into things like wormholes, warp drives, and invisibility cloaks. I mean, this is something that we're putting actual money into. And if we're going to do that based on just a government committee, and then it pretty much gets taken over by the Navy, that's going to be a huge amount of spending, way over $22 million. So these are just preliminary tests. But I think largely this stuff, maybe you can correct me here, but I think largely this is just a dissemination of information. They're just getting some things out there for us to chew on and think about. Because, like he said, they're only showing us stuff that's on the left hand 50 years old and on the right hand secret, then the stuff they're telling us now that they can't identify and stuff, man, I can't imagine what they're already able to do.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at it, some of the other things, one of the things that I was involved with was going in and doing propaganda to put one regime in and take another one out. It's a very common practice. And one of the things that you do is to make the reality seem like it's a joke. You turn it into a conspiracy theory, and if you get enough people to start to believe that theory is a joke, then it doesn't matter if it's a truth or not, because they're so invested into that joke that they will deny the truth in order to protect their livelihood, their belief system, and everything else. That's how you overthrow. And it's not the present that you overthrow, it's the children coming. That's what you want to work on. So it's, you're talking about all this stuff coming forward now. Well, as a country, as our government, or whatever you want to call it, has worked for the last 50 years to, I guess you could say, push down the conspiracy theorists, their nut jobs, or all this stuff. Well,
mixed nuts.
Yeah, mixed nuts, right? Cheese balls, mixed nuts. It's come to the point now where people don't know what to believe, so you can put anything out there. And what better way to actually start bringing some of this stuff forward when people don't take it credit at all? So I think that's why you're seeing a lot of this stuff starting to come forward, like we were talking earlier. They're starting to go. The Air Force is now admitting, UFOs and all this stuff. Well, they've been flying after them for almost 100 years.
So here's a question for you. On that premise, do you think that this is something that they're letting us know and this has been planned for 20 or 30 years? Because, knowing our government, they're not just going to let something like this slip without having an idea of how this is going to go down. Or do you believe that it's slipped out? Like Luis Elizondo threw some videos out there and caught the government off guard? Or is that all part of the government's plan, do you think?
Well, knowing the government, nothing happens without a plan.
Right. So they're just feeding us tidbits of information.
Yeah. Just in normal people, I say normal people that just want the normal life, right? Just want to work, have a good life. They don't want to know because that disrupts everything. If people woke up tomorrow and they realized that, religion was, false, there was no God, and there's an alien spacecraft floating above, it would be sheer absolute panic. It would throw everybody into this mayhem. So you introduce things slowly to people because that's the only way crowds can handle information. And you let people think that some are stupid, some are weird, some are like, hey, you got to look at this stuff. And then pretty soon, like I saw a meme the other day on Facebook, it says, we need new conspiracy theories because all the other ones were proven true. So, the government is slowly letting this stuff out.
What do you think caused this change? Because, that's all Project Blue Book, right? It's dispelling it, disseminating information, making people look like nutcases. That's how we've handled this traditionally for the last 30 years. If you watched The X-Files, you were kind of a nutcase. That's how I grew up. Anybody in the 90s talking about UFOs was laughed out of the room.
Well, it just goes back to as cultures change, so do everything else. So now you have a group of adults and children that have been raised with technology. They have been raised with the internet. They have been raised with Xbox and PlayStation and all these other games, right? The military has switched its way how they do aptitude test and training to where you actually run game consoles. Why? Because the Predator drones, which were built from Boeing out at Moses Lake, Washington, back in the late 80s, they're run by a game controller, Xbox actually. And so you have some kid that's sitting in, Colorado Springs that's flying drones over in Pakistan and over the top of Iraq with an Xbox controller. It's a game.
I hate to think of those kids that would scream the N-word at me when I was playing them with Halo or now.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting there with a button.
Yeah.
Aimed at a bunch of families.
Yeah, with the kill switch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
scary.
Isn't there a movie about that?
There have been several movies about that since the 80s, man.
Yeah.
About that's kids fighting our wars for us via video game.
Well, and that's truth. That's absolutely truth. And that's how I got into this whole operation. It started as a child. So, groomed and all that stuff to be into it. Had family members that were high up in certain ABC agencies, and that's just kind of what you got shoved into. This is family business. So yeah, what you're seeing now is the reason these patents and everything else are coming forward is because now people look at them and just go, I know it. Yeah, whatever. There is no more second guessing. There is no more, whoa, where did this stuff come from?
So you're just basically giving small amounts of information to desensitize the herd.
Sure, that's what you do. If you look it happens with anything. It happens with television programs. It happens with movies. It happens with games. Back in the 80s, a G movie didn't have any swearing in it at all. Now you go to a G movie and you have swearing and light drug use. You go to an R today and it's full on, mild porn and guns and all that. So you desensitize people as you go. You give them a little bit, you give them a little bit, you give them a little bit. 18 years of war now, people are desensitized to the brutality of it, So, yeah. People talk, about UFOs long enough and go, oh yeah, they exist. What's on CNN now? moving on. Old topic. So we can actually hide in plain sight.
But I also find about the thing about UFOs right now, or people, whether they're less denying, but they're less that it's a big deal.
Oh,
Well,
it's
of course,
yeah.
because it's one of those things like, well, of course, there's video and it shows stuff, and it probably is UFO. But now they're so, I don't want to say numb, but it very much desensitized to it.
Oh, they're very numb to it.
You know, there's the thing like Independence Day where everybody looks out the window and there's that huge spaceship coming out, and that would be a shocker. But now if they say, "Hey, listen, a little alien we just saw flying through," people would go, "Oh, that's cool." Some people kind of UFO in there.
I kind of had a theory about that, because the last 50 years of alien movies have pretty much been giving us one theme, which is the second they meet us, we're screwed, which is a great way to really prime a nation for when they come, and if they are not benevolent and they're benevolent, we do whatever they want because we're already primed to think that, well, if we don't, they're gonna kill us, even if they're not going to. That's a perfect way for our government to be like, yeah, just listen to what we say the first time because or else.
Well, so that like the Phoenix incident, which is of course this.
Oh yeah, one of the big.
Yeah, it was huge. So I'm having a conversation with somebody who's pretty Mormon, and we were talking about that, and I said, what do you think about that? They were in Arizona at the time, didn't see it, but heard everything about it. They go, well, enough people told me about it that I do know something was up there. And I said, okay, do you think it's alien? She goes, gosh, it might be alien. I could see it. I said, okay, well, if tomorrow you found it was an alien, does that mean you're no longer Mormon? She goes, well, I won't go that far. I mean, it could be aliens, but she just was like believing it just enough to but didn't think about the consequences. So that's the other one. People think, well, the aliens are here all the time, but what are the consequences of that?
Well, that goes, I mean, that's a loaded question. It goes all the way back to Emperor Constantine and redoing the Bible and the start of the Catholic Church and all that stuff.
Where he saw the flaming cross in the
Yeah,
sky.
yeah.
But Christianity's been preparing to this for like 25 years. Like I said, 10 years ago or more, the Catholic diocese came out and said it's okay to be Catholic and believe in UFOs. They don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's
By doing so, though, they also take away the fact that misdiagnosis of earlier aircraft to be aliens as angels or
sure,
God
but that's the thing. They don't want you to think about what comes before. They're just paving the way for the idea that, hey, if there are aliens and God can both coexist, so we're not going to rewrite everything. We're just going to adjust. And on the same way, I totally lost my train of thought.
well, the aliens and God thing, right?
I think
So,
my hat has got a hole in it.
That's to say, you have a hole in that.
so I mean, if you look at humans in this and the alien God thing, they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Look at the drawings in the Mayan and the Aztec and all the way into the hieroglyphs through Egypt and all that. If we ourselves were to go back or to find a civilization that was 300 years, 400 years behind us, we're talking, going back into the Dark Ages, right?
You could just say Tennessee.
Yeah, anything of that, Mason-Dixon line, anything like that. They would be perceived as a god. Pretty much.
Well,
you show up.
Science you don't understand always appears as magic.
Yeah. So to say, appearing of, the Catholic Church is saying, oh yeah, you can believe in aliens and God too. Well, they're saying they're one and the same. That's all they're saying.
Well, what's interesting is this is a whole wag the dog conversation because if the government wanted to, and like you said, they have technology that's 50 years newer than what we actually think it is. Why couldn't they do the same thing, say that it's aliens, and then try to take control of everyone as a way to keep them safe, knowing that they're the ones that started it in the first place?
How do you know they're not doing that?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We're in the beginning stages of that process.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
if an alien, and I'm putting my fingers in quotes...
I thought you were waving it. I looked over my shoulder because you did one, and you looked like you were giving a wave.
He was E.T. touching the microphone.
That was the weakest air quotes I have ever seen.
There we go.
So, okay, if there was a UFO that landed on the White House
They're
tomorrow,
UAPs now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it landed on the White House tomorrow, and it could be government completely, it could be our own spacecraft, and everyone would lose their mind. And if the government came out and said, hey, this is how we save you, this is how we keep you safe, everyone, besides maybe Tennessee, would try to fall in line with that. It's just a perfect way to take control of a nation or a world.
That's what I was saying about
yeah.
mutually destruction. We're assuring destruction or else this.
Well, and here's something interesting too.
The reptilians.
Well, no, you get into there's a lot more to that.
I want to hear about that.
That's a different episode.
So
I gotta ask real quick, Tom. What did you call them? They're not UFOs.
They're
UAPs.
What's that?
Unidentified aerial phenomenon, and they've changed that.
Did they get a new marketing department?
The government got a new marketing department. That's exactly it.
Well with millennials.
Well, that's the
they
thing.
identify as aircraft, ships,
That's the thing. Governmentally,
planes, blimps.
there have always been something to look into UFOs, UAPs, or whatever. Be it Project Blue Book, what came before that in 47, ATIP, and now we have the UAPTF, which is the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force. And that's been going on unknown pretty much since ATIP quit, and until this day. That's where all of this new stuff is coming from.
Well, we're kind of skipping over.
Here's the thing. It's not new. If you go back to the files of World War II, there are tens of thousands of files that are still held as top secret. And
Right.
only 70 have been brought forward. One of them is what they call the Foo Fighters. One of them is Project High Jump, which 90% of that project, the official records of it, is redacted or not even released. And if you take back into consideration the pilots that flew into Germany in 1943, 44, that ran into these things, that would literally bring a B-17 down with what looked like a bright light or a bolt of lightning from this Foo Fighter.
Right.
This isn't. That's what I'm saying. What you're seeing today is old. You might as well be, flying a Rambler.
Well, what about MJ-12? What do you think about that? The Majestic 12 and Truman and all the...
That existed, man.
Oh, I know it
all
did.
but
Absolutely.
proved MJ-12 existed. That's all Project Blue Book. That's what that is. I'm wondering about what's going on now. What do you feel? So, in December of last year, Israel's. So I think he was Dr. and also General Chaim Eshed, and he was the space chief for Israel. He was talking about.
Sorry, I was getting a beer, and that's why this.
That's okay.
That's all the mumbling in the background.
This is talking about a galactic federation, the space campers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have the gigahop.
So they're talking about that already being a thing. He was talking about there being a shared base on Mars between the United States and alien forces. How we already have an agreement in place with aliens that Trump knew. And the funniest thing is, none of this is just like, it's corroborated if you go back with the Gary McKinnon stuff in 2002 when he broke in. He said that he saw things that were warships that he thought were out in space, listed to the U.S. Navy with transfers to them. So, do we already have a military presence in space?
Yes, we have.
Are we on Mars?
I don't know. The moon for sure. We never left.
Like the Mujin is. So they're talking about making a staging area, but I think they wouldn't talk about doing that unless it already was a staging
it's
area.
been there.
China's going to the other side of the moon. What's going to be there?
Transformers.
Nothing.
Wait, we're on the other side.
We are. We all are. And that's what people don't understand. What you see, it's like poker, right? They're playing in the media. They're playing all the entities against each other. Russia, China, us, North, South. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's all a game. They all play for the same company. Mm-hmm. Mattel, whatever you want to call it. Because you have to give people a boogeyman. You have to give people someone to fear, something to hate in order to push things forward. So what better way to do that to get people riled up by some country passing us, that lives on the same place that it's nobody's passing us. We all live on the same damn rock.
Well, and that's the thing.
So, but in order to get things pushed forward or to hide in plain sight, you got to have a boogeyman. Doesn't matter who it is.
Well,
An undefined other.
It's the
If you're
Kansas City
Christian,
Shuffle, man.
it's Satan.
You look over here and do something behind him over.
As the world gets smaller, it only makes sense to identify that enemy outside of the world.
Okay, but with that, can I just say that Ryan just threw a cheese ball in my mouth from all the way across the table? And that was really
Nice.
impressive.
I missed that.
Yeah, he did. First try.
You caught me over here monologuing.
Oh
That's
man,
something
you know
else.
what I didn't pick up? We should have picked up Tic Tacs because that's what everybody's talking about. The
yeah.
Nimitz
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So that being said, 04, you said you were in the 2000s. Is that anything you heard anything about? I mean, none of this. These are only 3 videos that were really publicized because they were able to be publicized and would make a shock. But I'm sure that these are only 3 small incidences in a sea of incidences. For the Navy, for the Air Force. And how come we're only hearing from the Navy? Where's the Army and the Air Force?
What is this incident you're talking about?
explain that first.
Okay, so in 2004 on the USS Nimitz, a lot of people saw a bunch of Tic Tac, like 747 size Tic Tac shaped craft go up to almost 80,000 feet, down to sea level in like a half a second, do so many things that should have caused sonic booms.
No, they were going slow.
And that's what I wonder. We're only seeing these things clocked at 42,000 miles an hour. But what's happening there? Are they just bending time, bending light? How are they jumping from there to there? I mean, this stuff happened all the way back to 47 when the guy saw him in Washington, the Idahoan guy.
Well, there's a couple theories about that, and then that goes all the way back to the Hadron Collider and all that they got over there dealing with that. One of the main things of the Hadron Collider was to find the neutrino.
Right.
The neutrino is the God particle of spaceflight. And the reason for that is it's the neutrino particle that causes mass. You take away mass, you have
no friction.
You have no friction, you have infinite speed, you have no inertia.
Right.
You don't actually exist.
You don't exist.
To gravity at all, to anything.
And unrecognizable. So, what you see in a lot of these craft, you'll see that bright flash and then they disappear. What that is that neutrino flash. Okay? So they are actually at that point transforming from a solid object, if things are solid, into a object that basically no longer exists. And so at that point, space, time, all that does not exist. It's literally, you can go the light speed on a single horsepower because you have infinite power. You have no mass. You have no inertia.
See, well, the fact that no friction alone would be enough to prevent anything from the sound barrier.
Yeah, but you also get in if you have to remove mass from the equation.
Well, right.
That makes sense
because it still takes a certain amount of horsepower, regardless if you have no friction, to get an object in motion since it stays in motion. That's because of mass. If you have no mass, like an electron, you can be in two places at the same time.
Right, which goes into quantum mechanics and string theory.
That's what that's about. It's about being able to jump from one place to another without moving.
So it's sort of like induced teleportation.
Mm-hmm. That's how USOs work. So UFOs make a lot more sense because they're flying through the air, and we already can fly through the air at Mach 5, Mach 6. I think we've gotten up there. Mach 9, I think, is the highest I've heard that we've gotten on a
the shuttle came in at Mach 25. So
there you go. But like under the water, we have USOs, which are unidentified submerged objects, which are essentially the same thing. And when you talk about, so I was talking about earlier, transmedium crafts, they're talking about UFOs going between the water, the air, and space, and being able to go these things at the same speed. I mean, we obviously can't move half the speed we can underwater as we can on land or on the air, but they can.
Well, back in the mid 90s, Popular Mechanics had a little article on a plane that could launch itself out of water, fly, and then return back to the water and fight as a fighter plane, both air and underwater. That was back in the 90s. So, we're talking about how are they're always giving information. You just have to be able to look and find it.
So do you feel optimistic about the future of UFOs going forward now that they're not just making people seem like idiots? You're not just, ostracizing people for their beliefs.
Well, and that's what I was talking about. So there's two lines of thinking. And this goes all the way back to, I don't know how deep you want to get, but we got mixed nuts, so shit, let's do it. If you go all the way back to the Sumerian tablets, it talks about there was two groups. One was for humans to advance and to become what they are meant to be, right?
Okay.
The other group wanted humans to be subject, slaves, laborers. Okay. Thus the big war that you read about in the Hindu texts and all that of the gods fighting in the air and all this other stuff.
Sure.
So one side lost, right? And the side that wanted to keep people enslaved lost. And they were in the Sumerian text, and you can read it. It follows all through the Bible. They were basically imprisoned here on earth, right? So you have, like you were talking, does the government want to keep you subjected? And if another group comes in, they're going to be like, oh my God, these guys are here to kill us. So history is there for a reason, and 10,000, 12,000-year-old tablets that were written by people that couldn't even, sharpen a stick. There has to be some validity in something. So you have to ask yourself, if someone says they're the bad guys, how do we know?
Right.
How do we know they're the bad guys when everything that
What's our frame of reference except for what we've been
exactly.
spoon-fed?
What are you backing that
Mars
statement
Attacks.
up? Yeah, exactly. That movie sucked, but funny.
I'm just glad, personally, that
I
we're
don't know.
moving on past
At least
that
we have
ridicule
yodeling
part.
to protect us.
Yeah, well, if any alien lands and says "ack," we have to kill it.
Ack,
I agree. Ack is not going to
But
happen.
Nanu's totally okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Did you know that we made these tinfoil hats out of the aluminum in our vaccines?
They're actually remnants of weather balloons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No.
that's just
I thought so because it was a very light aluminum, so it felt like it was very
You can almost
speedy.
see through it.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the craft, that one that I saw.
Yeah.
We wanted to talk about
Yeah.
that. So one of the crafts that we were pulled in for a security detail. And they shut the lights off to the area that this was at. And they rolled this craft out. And it wasn't that large of a craft, 20, 30 feet. It wasn't really saucer shaped. It was more like a pumpkin seed. Kind of sharp on one end, rounded on the other. And when it got out, it levitated off of its landing platform, and what it looked like was a heat mirage in and around it. No sound.
So just like spatial displacement.
Yeah, This
Okay.
is that's about you could see. You could see like a heat mirage,
Mhm.
but there was nothing to make a mirage with. So then everybody got away, and this craft just sat there or hovered there. Slowly started to move and orientated itself pointing up, and in a half a second you couldn't see it. It was gone.
wow.
And there was no sonic boom, there was no noise, there was no sound of whistling or anything. It was just gone.
Did it affect the ground or the environment at all?
No, didn't even disturb the grass.
Have you ever had any lasting radiation effects?
Oh, I have thyroid cancer.
That's crazy. Do you attribute that with the close?
sure.
Absolutely, huh? Wow. That's crazy to me.
So, talking about this craft, it came back the same as it left, about 30 minutes later. We were just looking, going, wow, that was kind of interesting. And it literally just appeared right there. It just stopped. No noise, no nothing. Bunch of little men came out, put it on its landing platform. It rested on it. They put it back into the hangar. All the lights turned back on. Everybody go about your business. Nothing happened. Nothing to see here.
When you say little man, you're talking about
Air Force.
midget Air Force.
Air Force.
Yeah,
Okay.
not LGMs, right?
Yeah.
So
LGMs?
Little,
Little
green, man.
No little green
I
men.
don't think that's a scientific.
Oh,
it's
that's
an X-Files term.
Okay.
yeah. Mulder said it.
Mm-hmm. So I have a family member who was telling me she was in the Navy, and while she was on her ship, they were out in the middle of the ocean, and they saw orange lights that mimicked the lights on another ship. But since it was far enough away, they couldn't see it. It was at night. They radioed to it and said, "You need to identify yourself, or we're going to shoot you down." Nothing. They said that 3 or 4 times, and finally, as they were getting ready to shoot this thing out of the water, all of the lights scattered, and then they were gone. And I guess the captain of the ship got everyone on the board and said, "None of you saw this. This never happened. If you repeat it, you will get in lots of trouble."
That's the problem with the environment we've made, because that's obviously the military response, but that's also the response from anybody else who's seen it. Going back to the 70s, there's been astrologists who have actually seen this stuff, and then their bosses are like, "Look, we're going to destroy that because we can't
Astrologists
be
or
related."
astronomers?
Astronomers. I'm sorry, not astrologists. Astronomers. Talking about we can't be related to this because it would be laughing stock if we said we saw aliens.
Yeah.
Which is nice, because I think it's a breath of fresh air that the Navy's actually coming out with a way that we can report them finally. That Air Force pilots, Navy pilots can report this stuff.
It's not that they're wanting to. It's the biggest thing that has helped all this is the smartphone, and the reason for that is everyone has a camera.
So they're just forced to
Yeah.
We force the hand,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in turn, they start, like say they, whoever they are, you can put that to anybody. You slowly start giving little tidbits, right? Because everyone's like, oh, it's, some tic tac flying through the air. There's a million cameras taking a picture, but it flies across to Europe.
But why is it always a shitty picture? That's what I want to know.
They're not always shitty pictures. That's just the ones that they circulate to make people look discredible.
It's like, it's like
so you think it's just a wag the dog thing versus like this guy could post a perfect picture on his Facebook?
Well, but it never works that way though. You ever notice this? Like you go and take a picture of somebody and you go, hey, I'm going to take your picture. And you take this really nice, well-lit picture and you go, here, take a picture with my camera. You hand them your phone and the picture looks like complete shit. Mm-hmm. Not everybody knows how to take a picture.
It's true. But you know who does? The government and gun cameras. And that's why these 3 videos that have come out and been verified are so important. Because it doesn't matter what's come before that. It doesn't matter if they've discredited people or we've come out with grainy videos like Bigfoot videos. These are videos that this would be on the line of the U.S. government saying, yes, those are legitimate videos of a creature.
Well,
of an unidentified creature, but a real amazing creature. Yeah. That's what they've said. These are trackable, physical items. We just do not know what they are.
And that's exactly what they've just done with the Navy going, yeah, these things exist.
Yep.
Why? Because it gets everybody off their back.
And they're just going to say, we're going to treat them like a threat.
Yeah.
That's the best thing they're going to do with it.
And now if you look at the Navy policy for that, it's just observe and report. If you see them, report them, go about your business is what you're doing.
So they're putting the whole safety of the world into if you see something, say something?
Well, no. What I gather from what he's saying is, instead of saying, don't say anything about it, they're saying, definitely tell us and we will do something about this, wink, wink. Taking care of it.
Yeah, the last video I saw, which was very interesting, it showed at F-18, and it was trying to keep up with this Tic Tac, and it was doing Mach 2.1, that plane was vibrating. It was at its top. And this object that it was going after literally sped up on radar to 42,000 miles in a second. And then from that, it was already out and beyond. Mm-hmm. It was in China.
Yeah.
And then came back behind it within that same second.
Yeah.
Going, what are you going to do at 2,100 miles an hour?
Right.
Jack shit.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's a way to, I guess, for me, looking at it, it's a way to calm the nerves of people. And it's a way to introduce craft that we already have to people. Otherwise, they would be going after it a lot heavier than what they are now. They're like, oh, look at these cool things that we found. Oh, we finally caught one. No, we've had them. They're in hangars.
Yeah.
We've been reverse engineering them for 70 years.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
So do you think that the government has aliens at Area 51 or anywhere else?
Well, Area 51 is no longer Area 51.
Yeah.
Yeah, they told us about it.
Yeah.
Area 51 is a publicity stunt.
Well, right. It's a distraction.
Yeah. So
you think at one time it was?
Yeah. Right. It's information dissemination.
That's
what that is.
You wouldn't know.
I took one out because I had headphones on.
Well,
so do you think so I'm asking because I don't know. Area 51 at one point truly was one time.
Groom Lake was and still is a test facility. It's still an R&D facility. It will always be an R&D facility. Not for the really big stuff.
That's in Antarctica.
Antarctica, and surprisingly, in Utah.
Okay, so do we share this stuff universally or internationally? And I say this, so let's just say, you would think, first of all, if everything that we've actually, if a UFO came down here and it can travel across the universe and like that and do all this great stuff, how come we haven't been able to reverse engineer it? Or have we, is my other question. And with that, are we getting all the good stuff? Or sometimes at one land in Russia, they got it, and they're not telling us what they got. Let's see, and then China got one. It was kind of cool, a really cool aircraft. or UFO flew down there. Are we sharing it? So like when Roswell happened and we learned about this cool foil, did we go, hey, Japan, look what we got?
I think it depends on where the scientists are.
Here's the thing. The International Space Station is international for a reason. It's got China. It's got Russia. It's got Israel. It's got India. It has everybody on board. Okay?
And the toilets just broke. And that, I was going to say, aliens probably have really good toilets.
Probably. They
So
probably
you
got
can
a
think-
killer bar, too.
They probably do. So for our toilets to break, and now all the guys were just wearing diapers coming back in here. So you think like, well, we have alien toilets now. Like they flush. They got really awesome bidets.
Yeah.
There's like really cool stuff involved.
You get a fluff and dry, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
No, I honestly, this is what I honestly believe. But the stuff that I've seen, not just from our country, but going around this place, there is stuff that is shared unilaterally. Just like, people think World War II was about the Axis and Allies. They were all on the same team. They were given a boogeyman, which was Germany, to go after. But in turn, 90% of Germany's scientists were given U.S. citizenship immediately.
Mm-hmm.
All of their medical and scientific, aeronautic, all of that was taken and split between the United States and its direct allies, which is Britain and France and all that, and Russia and its direct allies, which is China and all that. That's how it was divvied up.
Yeah, I mean, like,
So
Germany did get UFOs and did develop something. They're called the V1 and V2 rockets.
That Ford himself was still selling vehicles to Germany in World War II. They were put on American ships and sent over to Germany because the contract was still valid to supply Germany with vehicles and engines.
So, how long have you lived
It's
here
the same-
in Idaho, man?
I have lived, I'm from Oregon. My family moved to Oregon back in the 1830s.
So you're a northwest of Weller.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was going to ask. So I don't know if you guys know, but reported sightings to the New Fork was Idaho's #1 per capita for UFO sightings for the first 3 or 4 months of 2020.
Yeah, you got Maelstrom Air Force
We're-
Base right there.
87 cases in the last 18 months in July, and 23 of those, after investigation, were still unidentified. So this stuff is still going on all the time. And you can go outside and look at it right now. Have you seen anything since you've lived around here locally?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
sure.
Just on your own?
Yeah.
Do you remember when I called you a couple years ago and I'm like, Bill, answer your damn phone. I'm looking at a UFO. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you never answered or called me back.
And then Ryan suddenly changed his personality when he came back and had these 2 weird marks on his body.
It was the probe that I really liked.
No, it was
I'd pay for that again.
back in 2000. Let's see, when was that? We were doing the TV show, so that was 2010. 2011. Sorry. We're up on out of Baker, 8,000 feet up, and it happened 3 nights in a row. And we saw what we thought was a satellite as they cruised across the sky. Right. Well, this thing cruised across the sky, and we're like, wow, that's kind of cool. And then it stopped. Did a 90 and a 90 and went back across the sky. Stopped. Did a 90 and a 90, and it was mowing the lawn. And then just decided to take off. It got bored. So we're
a teenager.
Yeah, we're looking at this thing going, wow, that is, yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, the next night, it showed back up, but it was further down the horizon, mowing the lawn, doing what it was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Watched it 4 nights in a row.
And that's over in Baker.
Yeah, over the Elkhorns, yeah.
That's crazy. Oh,
But you say like, okay, so they've been at an all-time high, but also drones.
right.
Drones you can buy, like we have a drone that flies over our house once a week, and you hear, but if I don't hear it, and I just look up, those lights are pretty bright.
Yeah.
Drones are everywhere. People are going to fly them at night because they're easier to get away with it.
This is one thing I tell people. We've talked about different stuff. You know when you know. You don't have to have somebody convince you of what you just saw.
Yeah.
Whether
Somebody
it's,
telling you it's ball lightning or swamp gas.
it's one of those things that it's that fundamental human fight or flight identify and take cover. That when you see something, you gotta go, is that a drone? Well, yeah. When you see one of these craft, there is no doubt. Because it's something that's inside of your body. When you look at this, that is primal. It's I don't even know what you would call it.
Like we recognize it like you recognize a lion.
Yeah. You recognize the predator, right?
There's a gentleman in Boise that I made a ghost documentary a couple years back, and afterwards he saw it and called me up and he says, you got to do one on UFOs, and every night these UFOs go right over my house. They go right over my house. Mm-hmm. And if you come here and film, you'll see them. I'm like, oh my God, if they're flying over your house, I'm there. Bring camera down, set everything up. Sit there for an hour waiting for the sun to go down, and finally goes, look, do you see them? There they are. The radio towers off towards Cuna. Little lights flashing. There they are. This guy's like, there they are, aliens right there. They come over my house. Well, first of all, it's not over your house. It's about 10 miles away. And the radio towers. But he thought they were UFOs. When I told him that, he got angry. There's no way I was going to talk him off of that. So when you say, when you know, sometimes you don't know, though. Sometimes a guy like that, he doesn't know. So I know that it doesn't go the other way. I'm never going to see a plane and have someone go, I think it's an alien, and this is why. I think it's a UFO, or this is why. It doesn't go the other way. Seldom somebody, but also not every time just because you know.
No, and you have a point there, and it's one of those. You also have to use your deductive reasoning, right? As an hopefully intelligent human being, you got to ask the questions. How else can I explain this? What else would do that?
Well, if something's flying the speed of sound and then stops like instantaneously, that's not a drone.
Yeah, I go out to the desert all the time, and I put my air mattress in the back of the truck, and I love that, right? Just go out and chill. And there's been several nights where looking up, looking for the shooting star or whatever, and you're sitting there and you're gonna watch Elon Musk stuff go by. And
which makes it hard to see if they're UFOs when there's so many damn satellites in the sky, as an aside.
Yeah, and it was me and my brother, and we were just chilling out at the desert, and I'm looking, and there was a blank piece of sky, and it was over by the Andromeda Cassiopeia constellation. And we literally saw this craft, I'm going to call it a craft, came zipping in and stopped. And it just stopped, and it literally looked like a star sitting there. I didn't say anything. I looked down at my brother, and I was like, did you see that? Tell me you saw that. And he's like, what I thought I saw was a shooting star. I'm like, okay, where did that shooting star stop? And he goes, it stopped right there in the Cassiopeia constellation. So we watched it for 20 minutes. That same star went ding and shot off. So it's stuff like that.
And I'd love to see that. Very exciting stuff. We've been waiting for our dessert to show up the whole time.
Yeah, we've had a visitor.
We walks away for an hour.
A visitor from outside the studio.
Yeah, it got delivered.
I see he got here by canoe.
What's it say on the box, though? Look at that.
It says American Outdoor Products.
No, look at the side.
Outer space products.
So,
it says Backpacker's Pantry.
I 100%
What? That's cool.
will watch the videos where, like, here we have this thing and it's flying across, and there's a pilot trying to keep up with it, and it just disappears, and everybody goes nuts.
Yeah.
And I will not say, oh, well, it's got to be an alien, or it's got to be a craft we made or this. Like, I don't have an answer for it. So I'm not the person that goes, it is aliens. Most of the person says it's not aliens. I just want to. I'd love to find out it is.
My first, and there's been times where I've been out in the desert and I've just been like, holy hell, what the hell, going, this is another Phoenix sky, and then realize they're illumination rounds, and go, well, that was funny. We all laugh about it because you can see them float down and then disappear, and then some more light up.
All right, so let's talk about real quick dessert. So this is something I ordered a while ago, and it just showed up. And this is astronaut ice cream. And I'm very excited about this. I don't know who has or has not had it before. Tanya,
I've never had it.
Oh, it's good.
You never had it?
Mm-mm.
Welcome to the party, pal.
If aliens come, this will be the redeeming
So this
feature
is
of our
basically
planet.
it's deep, and this isn't the
Deep
real
fried.
stuff that they, or it's freeze dried. But this is not the real stuff that you get like from even, like the stuff I had at Space Camp. I didn't go to Space Camp as a kid. I went there as an adult and snuck on and filmed there. But it was
You
fun.
still said "wee" the whole
I
time.
did. They let me on the space shuttle simulator and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, this is weird.
Yeah. So anyway, this is freeze-dried ice cream. So
Yes,
everybody,
Awesome.
Good.
Real quick, we should do a documentary on UFOs and
Well-
interview people because that could be really fun.
So on that note, if you're listening and you're a fan and you're interested in UFOs, I did on some of the research I did come by in August. The state director of the Idaho chapter of MUFON, named Jim Millard, put out an invitation and said, if you want to be an investigator for MUFON, he needs volunteers. So you can be a Idaho investigator. If you're interested, go out and find out the truth. I think they do 5 or 6 different cases a month.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So maybe we can get him on the show too and talk about.
all right.
stuff
So
he
as
saw.
an investigator, though, what are you doing?
You're going out.
You're going out and
interviewing
following
people, most
reports.
I think you're going up and taking reports, following up on them, and like we do as paranormal investigators, just judging the validity of it, seeing if you can recreate anything. The things you can scientifically explain away, you should. With the idea in mind that we're moving forward again from criticizing and ostracizing people. One of my favorite quotes that I've had in researching this was from J. Allen Hynek. And if you don't know, he's notorious for having the best facial hair in UFOlogy. And so he says ridicule is not a part of the scientific method, and the public should not be taught it is. And that's important when it comes to any kind of cryptid, ufology, or paranormal investigation.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you have to have an open mind, and you have to take things scientifically, but if you already have the preconception that it's fake, that's all it's ever going to be.
Well, you have to learn to embrace the weird and the unknown, and treat it with the same skepticism as you do the known and proven.
Well, it's just like same concept with bacteria. You know, they would have. You said, you know, bacteria back in the day. Someone said that there was invisible little cells that were making you sick. They laughed at them.
Beasties.
Yeah.
So,
No.
well,
yeah.
that's a good idea. I think we should get a hold of that guy and volunteer.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm interested.
And
The
then,
truth is out there, as some have said.
And by the way, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
We do.
I told you it's good stuff. I mean, it's not, but it is.
Yeah.
So I never had it with the cookie.
It's like
dough,
humanity.
but
It's much better with the cookie on it.
yeah, I can see that. It's because you can't freeze dry the cookie though, so it's just a normal cookie with the freeze dried in the middle of it. But I think this is a very fine dessert to finish off a very fine meal and a very fine talk.
Yep.
And I'm sure we probably didn't even get into half your stories today, did we?
No.
We can
I
have
think
you
we're
back.
I think we're gonna have a part B because obviously started going on the science of believing in conspiracy and
Yeah,
stuff like
that's
that.
kind of where things kind of go, anyways. You know.
And I'm gonna say, I learned a lot on this. I still have never seen anything I can't explain in the sky, but I've never seen anything that I just blew off as, oh, that must have just been a satellite or anything. Yeah.
But do you have anything that you're on the line about that you've seen? That you wouldn't say that was an alien, but you can't say for sure it was a
For-
satellite.
Alien wise, no, but I remember. So I grew up in LA, and I remember being in a movie theater, and I saw these weird lights, but they were so close. They had to have been. And I saw them spinning, and I asked everybody what they were. Nobody else saw them, but it would have been like 2 blocks away type thing, landing. So I'm not the only person in LA that saw a UFO land. So there was that. So no, I've never seen anything in the sky. I've seen a lot of things I can't explain. Actually, I've seen very little I can't explain because I always come up with an explanation for it. And it could be right or wrong, but I've never seen anything in the sky that just amazed me. I see things, I'm like, oh, that was cool. Or I remember being a kid seeing, my first time I looked in the sky and saw a satellite. I thought, oh my God, look at that. I just saw a satellite go by. And then I look up, I'm like, get out of the way, satellites. I'm trying to see the stars.
Or when you see Starlink now, and it's like this perfect line that goes across the sky. That I thought was UFOs when I first saw it.
Yeah.
And I have the app on my phone that shows,
Yeah, where
like
they're
when you aim it up where everything's at. And I've been to dark sky parks where you could look up and see everything. And it's awesome. And I still haven't seen anything. And I want to. And I think it'd be really cool. I want to get a telescope. I want to see all sorts of cool stuff.
Well, let's do the documentary.
Yeah.
It could be fun.
Somebody come probe
You know,
Bill.
it's funny that you talk about can't see. What a lot of people get confused, and I think you and I talked about this too, Ryan. Is people confuse a lot of the stuff with the paranormal and with alien, if you want to go route, you know, and that's where you start getting into your Greys and your Reptilians and all of their.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had a perfect conversation with Forrest today about Steady Ranch. Like,
Yeah.
that place is considered to be one of the most active places in the United States, at least, for UFO encounters. And there's people up there that say that they've had beings land and talk to them. Now, I'm not saying that's true, but what I'm saying is it'd be a good place to start.
And here's the other problem I have with space travel. I'll be the first to believe that there's got to be life on other planets. Whether it's advanced life, whether it can actually get in a spaceship and fly, or whether it's just a couple cells walking around trying to figure out what's going on. I believe there's life on other planets. Do I believe that it's at a level, if the universe has been around for trillions of years and life has been around for a billions of that, which is this little speck on the timeline, for their speck to be our speck? I mean, human life on this planet is going to end one day. It's just going to happen. Sun's going to burn out. We're going to vote for Trump again. There's a lot of different things going to happen that's going to make this world better. But for life to be at the same exact time and just a little ahead of us, the odds of that are so low and so small.
But still, that's the thing. The Fermi paradox says that there have to be so many planets that life has to exist. But at the same time, if life exists and there's so many planets, it's exactly the opposite of that. It's exactly what you were saying.
Well, and here, the best thing I can say is to go back into history. Read history, not books that have been printed, but read the clay tablets that have been translated. You go back into the Sumerian tablets, I've mentioned those things before, 12,000 years old. They list the math it takes to launch a craft from the Earth, back when they were using cuneiform writing in clay tablets. So this has been an ongoing thing. It's just not lately that it's happened.
Could be time travel.
Very much so.
Do you think aliens live here with us?
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely.
On
All
Earth
right,
with
let's
us?
stop it at that, because I want to talk about that, and if we do it right now,
Yeah,
it's going to be a 3-hour podcast.
a part.
Are they Mark Zuckerberg? Is that their name? I'm just okay.
We'll talk later.
Well, as we're coming to a close, I do want to say thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
This was really
It's
fun.
been enlightening.
Really cool. It's been a fun talk. I'm just going to share what we're going to talk about next time for a very special Thanksgiving podcast. We're going to be talking about mythical birds.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
And what side dishes that go with them.
Yes.
How to prepare your mythical bird?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which ones will make you sleepy after you eat them?
Yeah.
A turduck, what the fucking up there?
So we're definitely going to have some turkey. To drink, we're going to have some cockatiels or cocktails.
Ooh, I like that. Nice. Grey goose.
Yep, some gray goose, some eagle rare, some wild turkey. Some of the less mythical birds, but we'll have them on deck.
Yeah.
So definitely tune in a couple weeks, November 24th, for our Thanksgiving episode. And who wants to close us out?
John.
Gobble, gobble. No, that's next week. We'll see you then. I'm actually really excited about this. UFOlogy is my big thing, and I really thank you for coming by, Casey, man. It's been awesome.
You're welcome.
We'll
Yeah,
never have a
definitely
bag
make
by. So if this actually makes it to air and the CIA doesn't bust in between now and then, we'll see you the next time.
Have a good night.
All right, and subscribe and all that stuff and everything and go from there. All right.
Bye!
Bye!
There you go.
Bye.